Okay, I've got some sound here, and of course, the classes begin on the 22nd of August, and this is in lieu of our meeting on the 27th, which is actually the first day of class that we meet, our first class. Of course, as you know, I have a bereavement situation, so I'm not going to be in town. I won't be getting back till Tuesday late. So I'm going to go ahead and record this course intro and then talk about also what's going on in week one. And remember, as I had mentioned, the any assignments that are due in week one, those you'll need to have those turned in. So we'll talk some about the course introduction, because we won't be meeting because we meet on Tuesdays. And I want to do that, and then we'll take a look at week one and what's going on. Okay. And probably one of the best ways I can introduce the course is to make certain that you know, first of all, where the usual, if you're familiar with my courses and you've taken them, you know that I will provide you a resource area over the modules, and you'll see the files for different workshops. You'll see the files for, and again, I had mentioned I was going to try to do an intro to the course. And here's what happened. On the announcements that I sent everybody, I had this class in for Thursday the 22nd, where I was going to do an intro to the course. Well, okay, I'm doing this intro to the course, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about week number one. All right. Now, as usual, I have all of the materials for you up here in the materials module. And I come down to this very first, the resources module, and I have the syllabus and the syllabus attachment. Let's take a look at the syllabus for just a second. You can see the textbooks. These courses, like most of mine, I'd use a workshop or a demonstration approach. I do a lot of that, then I give you exams, and then at the end of the semester, I'm going to ask you to apply what we've covered in class. As I would tell you in business problem analysis, or as I would mention, or as I would say in management science that I teach, data admin is the same way. You only learn it really by doing it, and by covering access, we're showing you the mother of all databases. So if you understand the basic principles of how we use and why we use access databases, for all intents and purposes, then you could use just about any database system and be fine. And the other is that we approach this from the end user perspective. So there are the two textbooks, the Patrick textbook, okay, and we'll be working through that textbook with some SQL. Then the business intelligence textbook, and then the POTSI textbook, where we explore Microsoft Access. Now, I'm going to go over here and to Vital Source, where I keep my textbooks, okay? And there it is. And then I'll log in. So let me get myself signed in. And okay. Now, we go over here to the library. All right. And we'll talk about this. First of all, here's the business intelligence textbook. Okay. Remember, that's the syllabus. The Patrick textbook, I don't have it over here, but it's the SQL fundamentals And that's the one where we'll be taking code and learning some about a structured query language. So here's the business intelligence textbook. This is one of them. And then the other textbook is the POTSI textbook, Exploring Access 2016, and we'll find that here. And there it is. So that's two of the three textbooks. The POTSI textbook, which covers Office, Microsoft Access. As I said before, this is like learning how to drive a car. Once you understand how Access works, you understand how virtually every database works if it deals with structured data. We're going to talk some about unstructured data, but we'll really focus more on structured data. That is data that fit a table. And then the Business Intelligence, Analytics, and Data Science textbook, we'll have some assignments from there and exams there where we talk about how databases have become the foundation for this thing we call business intelligence and how it is the basis for analytics. So we'll see those two things as they come to fruition. Here's the grading, here are the points. Everything is, if you've had classes with me, you know I have everything clearly labeled, where to upload it, all of that information. Okay? And we'll go back over here. And the important thing also to understand is that 99% of all business students are going to leave college with a decent understanding of Microsoft Excel. They're going to understand spreadsheets. A few of them might understand dashboards, and even fewer percentage of them might have and some experience and might understand using a database. As I said before, Microsoft Access is the mother of all databases. And so as you see how it works, how it's put together, and you see the concepts of data warehousing, then a lot of this will make sense when you go out to work and you see these things called dashboards that will have data for them. Usually they're interactive. And you'll say, where's all the information, where's this data come from? Well, it's stored in databases. So we're going to talk a lot about databases as a foundation for this whole idea of business intelligence and this idea of analytics. And so how we use them as that foundation. We're also going to talk about how databases can be, the database model or database can be used as a business model. When you go to Google, you're performing a search, you're doing a query. When you go to Amazon and buy something, you're interacting with the database. When you go to eBay, you're interacting with the database. And so we're going to learn about Microsoft Access because it's like driving a car. Once you learn how to drive a car, you can drive any car. And it's also about understanding why we have it and why it's important and what to do with it. And this will help you as you're out at work communicate with the people in IT who will provide you the tools to use a database. So I wanted to cover that with you here as well. Now, we're going to have some access workshops that are going to be due, and I have the files for those workshops, okay? Workshops 3, 4, and 5. And then you see the Patrick materials. Those are there. Well, I have the files for the access there for you, and we'll talk about that. Before we go too much further, I want to spend just a minute to talk about what we call the analytical cube. Okay, and I want to open that up for just a moment. And The analytical cube is a way for us to see how a database allows us to look at data and data sets in a much richer way we can than if we just work from what we call a flat spreadsheet, a two-dimensional. You'll notice this is four-dimensional, and you'll see that we have these dimensions. The dimensions go around the product, okay, as well as the distribution point for the retailer. We have time as an element, okay, and we also have sales and the amount of sales. So as you look and you see, we can drill down and get a multidimensional look at data. A database allows us to look at 3 or 4, 5, as many variables as we want and pull them together. And when we do that, we get a much more holistic picture of things like transactions, things like communications, employee performance. And that's the beauty of a table, that we can do this multidimensional searching with these. We have 2, 3 different dimensions. And you can see these questions, i.e. these queries, in each of these areas. Now, I also like to include some resources for you that help you put the course in perspective. These are curated resources, and some of them are as new as yesterday. Some of them I've had for years because I think they say some very important and long-term kinds of things about databases and models of databases. Facebook is a database for all intents and purposes, and also have the password. We'll be working with some of the resources provided by Teradata University Network. So by the end of the course, you'll have had an opportunity to work with SAP, SAS, and Oracle, as well as Access. And so you will have seen the major database products that are used out in industry. And so you should have a level of comfort with them. If you do and you understand how they're used, you're way ahead of other students who are coming out of college and going to work out in business. And I also have some files here like this is Lunch's Database 12. Those will be from the Patrick text when we'll look at writing queries using a structured query language. You're going to find out it's very, very easy to use. We're going to look at inner joins, outer joins, all of these. I also have a slide share here for you on data mining. You're going to hear that term. That would be something to take a look at. And how SAS is using data mining we're trying to use these techniques to get the data to reveal some new things that maybe we wouldn't see if we just use them in a two-dimensional spreadsheet. High-speed computing, storage capacity, those as well have made the database as important a technology as spreadsheets were when they came about, as word processing was when it was introduced, and as the internet is. Now, I have a number of examples of databases and that you can look at. And again, I think it's important that you understand how much databases are embedded in everything in our lives. Now, I want to take a look for a moment, and this talks about the concept of the data warehouse and the data warehouse mix. All right, so let's pop out there. Now, you'll notice that we've got on the left-hand side here this thing called ERP, finance, customer This is external data. This is data from customer relationship management. This is data from the financial working dealings and work of the company and the ERP, okay? Enterprise resource planning. Most big companies have that. Most small ones do it, but they don't realize what's doing it. And notice how we come in and we use the data warehouse to build us reports. You can see here's that multi-variable, multi-dimensional report that pulls all this stuff together for us. But we couldn't do that if we didn't have the capacity for data warehousing. So we're going to talk about that and cover that. Now, again, I have plenty of resources here for you. I want to show you another thing, and this is the wisdom triangle. Okay, well, let's talk about this for just a moment as it rends itself up. Hopefully. May have to download it. Looks like it's going to be a problem getting it to render for us. So I'm going to download the thing so I can open it up. Okay. Now we get this here where we can see it a little bit better for you. A bit too much there. Now, here at the very top is what we call business wisdom. This is generalizable and reproducible knowledge. It's knowledge that we can use in a variety of situations, and we can reproduce it. It's tuned to company strategy. It's long-term strategies. Then we move down here to what we call knowledge, and this is replicable and reproducible information. And notice it's medium term in its focus, more of a tactical type of set of insights. And I give an example where I use BI to discern customer purchasing patterns. Okay. Now the information up here in the wisdom is the type of thing that we'll use, for example, in a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis in a strategic planning cycle. And then here we see information. This is typically short-term, typically operational. It's data that's actionable, data that I can use to make a decision or to defer a decision for all intents and purposes. So this is a progression, as you see, of three different types of, we have information, and really at the bottom of it is data, just stuff that we've collected, then the information. And think of this like in Excel when we create a record, okay? And we have rows of data, and we have the name, employee's last name, employee first name, employee middle initial, simple kind of, we'd have that all in a spreadsheet there, all right? And when we pull that all together, we have a full name of the employee. Well, then we start to add additional layers of dimensions. Well, how long have they worked for us? What's their position? How much do they make, etc. And we really start to get a good idea of a much richer picture of that set of employees. That could be the same things, for example, around the conditions surrounding a transaction. All right, so we'll go. These again are some fundamental concepts that we'll be working with. And you'll see I have some links like SAS Visual Analytics, heat maps. one of the things that we've seen with the rise of database technology is the explosion of tools and techniques that are out there in terms of geographic information systems, using tools that are really drawn from a database that help us see, for example, where to put a branch of our business, where we will find the greatest number of potential customers. If we're a distribution or logistics company, what's going to be the best route to follow? Mapping, and there's a company, Esri, out there. They're in Redlands, California, who are the world leaders in geographic information systems. And I can tell you that there are all kinds of open as well as proprietary tools that use mapping, use geographic information systems as a means to understand our business. So it's really been just this incredible kind of explosion that's occurred in the past 10, 15 years. Then we have some things, for example, like Microsoft Strategy Analytics. These are tools, Microsoft's one of them, that try to take the best parts of a spreadsheet, the best aspects of a database, and tie them together and add a visualization component that gives us a dashboard. And you'll hear people talk about, and the dashboard used is that business intelligence component. I have some information here as well as policy data. And so I think you're going to find that databases are an important tool for us to get a better picture, a richer, a fuller picture of our customers, our competitors, company operations, how people respond to different aspects of our product service bundle, regulatory data, customer behavior. You know, you see these things like you hear about click tracks, or they have your data, they get predictive data where we can say, okay, this person has a tendency to purchase this certain type of product. That's kind of the holy grail. And we can base it on behavior, not just some survey. And as we go through the course, you're going to see, and we'll talk about some pretty fantastic technologies that make this in many ways a golden age of marketing. Now, in the same time, although it does, we also have to make sure that we're sensitive to privacy needs. And that's going to be a big challenge for all of you. Then the policy is regarding late work. I have a link there on the diffusion of innovations. It helps you understand some of how that happens. Now, we're going to work with the Northwind Traders database, okay? And for the 27th, this is for, as we start to move from the course intro down to the 27th for this week, we're looking at the data warehouse concept and how we design information. So we're not just reactive where there's data and we collect it, extract it, and report it. We design what it is we want to get. So we're proactive. And part of that is understanding the data warehouse concept, okay, and information design. Let's look at that for just a moment. Okay. And that's, we're going to see an Access Workshop 1 and an Access Workshop number 2. And here's a PowerPoint that talks about this concept of data warehouses and architectures. And we may have to download this for it to render, because it's rendering pretty slowly. Oh, no, there it is. All right. It's an excellent slide share put together by the University of Colorado. Okay. And some of the objectives. And we're looking at operational databases versus data warehouses. Operational databases are databases designed to cover the daily operations. For example, if you have, for example, UPS tracks all of its vehicles, and it has data it collects as operations are going on. That's an operational database. A data warehouse is a whole different critter. Data warehouse is where I've collected data about past or even recent events or dimensions of our product service bundle, or information about employees, or information about customers, or information about transactions, and we store it, and then we extract it. So they're used to produce reports, not run things. Okay. So there's an important characteristic between the difference between the two of them. Now, when we talk about making decisions, in this is this concept of the typical types of decisions we make in the decision-making hierarchy, all right? That's important to see that. We've got, identify new markets, choose store locations. Data warehouse helps us do that. Choose suppliers and forecast sales. A data warehouse helps us do that. Resolve order delays, schedule employees. That's, again, the job of a data warehouse. Notice we're looking forward, like identifying new markets, or we're looking backwards in terms of doing problem solving. And you can notice we've got these technology and deployment limitations. And it's important to try to integrate the two of those performance limitations. And that's where we use the data warehouse technology as we deploy it to deal with those issues. And it's a logically centralized repository for decision making. I cannot tell you how important that phrase is, and really what it means is this is the place I have all the data I need to make important decisions about our company. And notice it shows us the balance between transaction processing. Okay, somebody comes to our website and they buy something, versus business intelligence, where we take the information about what they bought and take all the other times they've bought information from it and do something with it. And we'll see the characteristics of the two different types of data. And the operational database, it could be just about anything, but in a data warehouse, you could see we have tables that are tied together by primary keys that are embedded in other tables that become a foreign key. And we pull from these different tables and create a query and then generate a report. And we're going to see that. Now, they want us to open this in a new browser, so we'll do that. They have different models of databases. You'll want to take a look at those. And this is just a tool that helps you do that. Okay. Let's go back up to the modules for just a moment. All right. And so we've looked at this whole idea. Now, we've looked at data house, warehouse architecture and concepts, the database models. Here's are what we call information design options. And let's take a look at this for just a minute. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and repage that out for us so it's in full screen. Notice I've got temporal data, geospatial data, topical data, process data, and tree or network data. And then I've got information about suppliers, operative type of data, operations, and users. And then I've got one-time, sporadic, periodic, or continuous data. When, what, where, how, and with whom. And you could also add in how much. So we become proactive when we begin to design the kind of information we're going to collect. You see, give me a simple example. Simple example. UPS tracks its vehicles, right? Well, it embeds GPS locators in its vehicles. That's information design because they want to see, did a driver follow the route? And they want to see, they want to be able to give you tracking information, and they want to be able to see how fast things got delivered. So if there are improvements needed, they can do so. And they can also input into that local traffic conditions. Is there going to be new construction, etc.? Are there certain times of day when the log jam is really great, the traffic's really backed up, you want to avoid? Again, it's this whole idea that you're proactive about the information that you want to get. Now, this is the Northwind Traders database. Northwind Traders is a kind of a model that was created by Microsoft Office so that you can learn how databases operate, particularly a data warehouse, how it's set up. Now, people can actually use this thing by inputting their own data, but Microsoft they provided you, basically think of this as a template, okay? So let's download this. And we'll get the usual thing about enable the content. And we're ready to go. And they ask us to log in, and you can just click and do your login. And they start with this very first form, which allows you, this is kind of like this is a dashboard for all intents and purposes that focuses on key things that you want to know every day, maybe every hour, it just depends. And here, for example, are quick links. If you want to view the inventory, orders, customers, you can click that and it will take you to a report. This shows you, for example, inventory. What do we need to reorder and how much? What are the status of our orders? So this is this dashboard allows you to quickly go to key performance indicators. And you'll read about that in the business intelligence text. All right. Now, as we talked about in 1123, every database has tables, it has forms, it has a way to query, and it has reports. Some of them also have a macro, an ability to automate. And as you would guess, the heart of a database, the heart of a data warehouse is its tables. And the word warehouse pretty much says it all. A data warehouse is where we store all this data in tables, and we tie those tables together to get a richer and fuller picture of our customers or what's happening, those kinds of things that we talked about in the operation design elements. Okay. Now, let's look at a table over here. Well, let's look at this set of tables, and you can see customers, employee privileges, employees, inventory transaction types, inventory transaction. Let's look at the types first, because that identifies dimensions of transactions. When we talk about a type or a field, we're talking about a dimension, a variable. When we tie a set of variables or dimensions together, we have a record. Last name, first name, middle initial, date of month born, day born, year born, years with company, current title, salary. Those are all those fields connected together to create a record. Here we have a dimension type. And if you remember back in 1123, we probably did some drop-down menus, but we can use these to develop drop-down menus to more readily identify a transaction type. But this is here for us, so we can see that we have these basic types of transactions. It was either purchased, sold, it's on hold, or it's waste. And here we have orders, and here's a record table. Now, I'm going to go back over here for a moment to the POTSI textbook. All right. And you're going to want to take a look at this text. Okay. And these are some of the fundamentals of building and working with the database. Okay. So I'm going to go back over here to Northwind Traders, and we'll go back and open up that access file. So this is what we would call a fact table. These are orders that were placed. These are facts, things that happened. Okay. Here's another fact table, pardon me, a dimension table, order status. Is it new? Has it been invoiced? We built it? Have we shipped it? Is it closed? Okay. Now, you'll notice as we come down, we have these two types of tables, fact tables and dimension tables. Here's a a strings table. Let's look at that. These are just statements that we add in on comments. Here's a suppliers list. And here are the people. This is a fact table. This is a list of our suppliers. Now notice that each of them, we have an ID. They have a unique ID that for each record. It's what we call the primary key. You probably remember that. We have the job title, the email address. Now, in the real world, all of these fields, these records will be complete. They'll all be filled out. Now, here's the products table. Notice this, it's a fact table. Then we have purchase order details. Let's open that up. Again, a fact table. So you have two types of table. One is a dimension table that just identifies the dimension or the type or the fields of a particular variable. Then the fact table, which is a record of transactions or events where we tie together all these different fields, these different dimensions. And we'll usually have numeric data associated with it. Now we have these tables, and from those tables, then we begin to extract the data. And let's close this off for a moment. Back, we'll close all of them. And let's look at the queries. Now, here is what we call a customer's extended query. This gives us a listing and everything we want to know about all of our customers. You'll notice that we have a contact name, how it's filed, that we have, and that really shows us the alphabet, how it's alphabetized. If we want to do it properly, we'd have a last name table and then a first name table, but they decided to bunch them like this. We have the ID for each of these contact persons. And then notice they did do it the right way, where they have a last name and a first name. Then we have an email address. Now in the real world, we'd have all this filled out. And where they're at. So with this customer's extended table, I could say, can you tell me where everybody is? How many of our customers are in Oregon? Okay, so I'm gonna click create. And we're gonna do a little bit of data extraction from our warehouse. And I'll come over here to the query design. Okay. And I'm going to use the customer's extended query because I can run a query on a query. So I'll be the customer's extended. I'll add that. Okay. And then I want their contact name, their ID, their company. And let's see what else I want to get. And we've got business phone, home phone. And we want to get state or province. And I want everybody who is in Oregon. I think I saw some people there. And let's see what we get. We'll run this. And there we are. Now notice we just ran a query on a query. We wanted to see how many people do we have, how many contacts or customers do we have in Oregon? Now, the customers extended has collected all the data about every customer we have, but we wanted to drill down and find out how many of them are from Oregon. And we could add some other things into our query here if we want to. We'll go down to the design level. And let's see, we've got their country, their region, their state, any notes, any attachments. Well, this is a fact table to a certain extent because it gives us a list, but it doesn't, we don't have some other important information like sales per company. So let's click on that. Let's take a look here because we're still in this query. And we'll click Show Table. And let's go over here and let's see, we've got orders, purchase orders, sales reports. Let's click on sales reports. That may be what we want, maybe not. And they've got them grouped. Title of the row. That may not what we want. Let's go ahead and add, let's see, purchase. Let's look purchase order details. Purchase orders. Purchase order details. I'll close this for a second. I want you to notice something. You see where the connections are between these three tables? Again, a data warehouse is where we have this stuff stored, all this information, and then we begin to pull it together. And notice that these are connected. Okay? These tables are related to each other. They're linked. And they're linked for a simple reason. That's how we get the fullest effect. That's how we get that analytic cube I talked about earlier. Okay? So I'm, let's see, we're going to get, we'll get purchase order details, and we're going to get the product ID, the quantity, the unit cost, and the date received. And let's see if this will work for us. Well, doesn't have them. Let's go back down to the design view. And it doesn't have them by state. So let's go back in and look at this, see if we can find ourselves another table. And we've got the sales reports. And we'll grab that one. Let's just see. I'll just get rid of these. We'll just delete it. Now let's add the sales reports. Well, let's take a look at these other tables for just a minute. Let's get orders on that. Okay. And we want the customer ID. And now, notice that we don't have connections between the orders table, pardon me, just get rid of that, remove that table. I went to, or the customer ID, but we still should get and ship city, and let's just go down here some more. Tax rates, tax status. Let's just stop this and see what we get. Well, nothing there. So we don't have some of these tied in together. On the customers extended, we have the customer ID, but we don't have that linked to the customer ID over here. So we're going to do this for just a second. Let's try this. Let's take the customer ID, and let's see, we have the customer ID over here. Let's try to take the ID here and add it. And link the two of them together, and then let's see what we get. So with the warehouse, play around with this all we want. That we can see we're not going to get the fact table that we want. But you can see here still, without these, we can get all those that are in Oregon, and we'll delete that one. And we have purchase order details, the sales reports. In province like Oregon. And we'd have to look at these other tables, but we extracted the data down. We'll talk about linking up tables a little bit better here in a while. Okay, now we've run this query and we'll close it. No, we don't want to save that. And let's look at some of these other queries. Here is one on inventory. Let's open it up. And to see how this inventory query was put together, we'll pull the design. Now we'll scroll down here and look at all these tables that are tied together. This is what we talked about with the Analytic Cube. As we pull all this together, we have a nice geographic interface and access that lets us do this. Okay. You can see all the tables that are tied together. And these are typically what we would call one-to-many, or these are just, look at the join property, these are just direct joins. What we would call, direct joins or inner joins, where both tables have to match up. Notice in this case, product ID, here in the products table, it's tied into the ID. Notice how product ID is connected here from the products table, this dimension, to the inventory table, this inventory sold, products on back to order, probably inventory on hand to produce this report. Now we go up to the data sheet view, and you can see the product name, the product code, how much is purchased, how much is sold, how much we have on hold, quantity we have on hand, quantity available, and how much we need to reorder. And we pull that from all of those different tables. So we'll see this some more as we link these. Now, this is a fact table that has everything in it about inventory that we'd want to know. Let's go down here to the reports. I'm going to close this inventory table off. All right. And we've got beyond the queries, and we're going to find the reports. There'll be a solid green icon for those. And here's a customer address book. We reach all these people. Here's a customer phone book, employee address book, employee phone book. This is the invoices table, labels, a monthly sales report. Let's click on it. And notice we can get the following types of reports: yearly sales, quarterly sales, monthly sales. This uses a form whereby we can execute a query using any one of these variables. So we're going to get sales by category for the total year. And we've got the year 2006. Okay. And we've got the year. And as if we want to filter these. And let's try it. Soups. Okay. And they'll tell us, let's preview it. And there we are. Then, of course, we can print it so we can output it. This is product category by sales by month. Let's open that up. And here's the product categories. And notice there are several of these. There are 47 of those reports, in fact. And product by sales category. Product sales by total revenue. Let's open that one up for a moment. Notice we can look at it month by month. We've got that date there and the amount. It's going to give us this report. We could look at March 24th. Let's look at March 28th. Let's see how we did that day. We may have to go in here and change it. Maybe it's not going to let us. That's going to say this is today. And you can see all the different dates we can search for. We've got 55 different reports there for us. So the whole idea is to use all of these different tables. Now I'm going to close this off for a moment. In fact, I'm going to close all of these. And I'm going to click on a thing called the database tools. And we're going to look at relationships. So you can see all of these tables that are tied together. And as we pull these out, we're going to start to see how they're all related. But as I mentioned before, the data cube, the analytical cube, excuse me, this ability to take several types of information and combine them and relate them. Notice how up here we have inventory transactions, and we have the ID. Then back down here, a different inventory transaction table, and pull them together. And that's the whole idea of that data warehouse, is to tie all these tables together and then run queries that use those linkages to give us a fuller view of transactions. Now, I'm going to take this file and I'm going to save it as a database. And then I'm going to click Save As. All right. And I'm going to put that on my desktop. You can see I've done it before. And then I'm going to close that off. Now you should have it on your table, on your desktop there. And there it is. Now let's go back over here to the modules. And we'll close this off. We'll come down here to the work that's due. Okay. Now, if I tell you that there's any work due on the 21st, I'll say upload it here. Now, let's look at this for a moment. 27th, we're to work on Access Workshop 1 and Access Workshop 2. All right. Now, as you see, we're working on these workshops. We're going through these workshops, a couple of them at a time. And we just we just got finished going through Access Workshop number 1, where we introduced the data warehouse concept. And so we went through Northwind Traders. Now, here's a thing called Access Workshop 2. Fact sales for Access Workshop 2. Now, you say, well, when will I turn this in? These workshops. Here they are. Okay. And so they're going to be due on March 9th, but we'll work through them. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you an important piece of understanding this whole idea of information design, database architecture and concepts, the data warehouse. Here is an Excel file that's an export. And this is our Access Workshop 2. All right. And this is an export. I'm going to open it up. Then we'll need to download it so it will rend. Now let's see what we got here. This is the fact sales table. This is the fact sales table that was over in that was in the database, Northwind Traders. We exported it to Excel. Why? Well, we've exported to Excel because it will be far easier for us to generate analytical data. We can use a pivot table. We can use conditional formatting. We can do charts. It's going to, because Excel is designed to analyze and present data. We've extracted the data using the query in the data warehouse. Now we take the next step by taking this data, okay, and analyzing it. So we can do any one of a number of things. We could create a pivot table. We could create a chart. We have the number of orders, the line cost, the line price. Now, say for example, here we have the line price, okay, and we have the unit costs. So this is what we're selling it for. This is what it costs us. So I'm going to add a new dimension right here, and I'm going to call this, for want of a better term, price minus cost is gross profit. Now we could do a query in Excel or any database. We can create an expression and we could run the data. We could run that, but it's going to be much easier for us to do it here. Now, when you go out to work, you're going to see these products that combine the best of a database and the best of a spreadsheet: SAP, SAS, Oracle, that try to give us the best of both worlds. And what happens is and the dashboard that you'll see will depend greatly upon a number of factors, including your level in the organization, plus your level in the organization, plus the type of business you're in, for all intents and purposes. So we've got the customer ID, the channel ID, etc. Now, we know we have these different sales channels. And so we're going to look at gross profit, and I'm just going to call it that. And just to make sure, I'm going to call it line gross profit. Okay. Yeah, this will be easy. Nothing there. Now, because we want to stay in the columns, I'm going to put a dollar sign in front of the G. I'll put a dollar sign inside of the in front of the H. There we are. Okay. And then it becomes just simply a matter of I Let's go down to the end. We'll get rid of these extras here because we don't want to do anything with them. All right. So we know our table stretches basically. Our table is J36 all the way up to A1. But now we have the line gross profit. Now we're in a position, if we want to create a chart. To look at these, we could run a pivot table so that we look at them by a particular type of line or product ID. And let's just do that. We've got the line gross profit. So let's go ahead and we'll highlight all of these. In fact, before we even do that, we could just do a simple sort. But we want to do something a little more complex, so we'll do a pivot table. Okay. And we're going to click Insert, Pivot Table, and we're going to put it in a new worksheet. Now, I've got these pivot table fields, so I want to build a report where I'm going to look at product ID in the columns. I think I'll put the product ID over here in the rows. And then the line gross profit, which is a value. And right off the bat, I have a very nice little table that shows me the product ID and the gross profit generated by each. Now, I can also add in a column if I want to by putting in the channel ID, and we'll do that. So now we see, okay, the product ID, the channel ID, the marketing channel, internet, I think it's internet, television, whatever, and then the gross profit for each of those. And I'm not quite sure what the M and P stand for. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. Now I can even add another dimension to this on a top layer by putting in the sales date or the customer ID. I'm going to add a temporal dimension, so I'm going to put in sales date. I can select multiple dates or all of them. Now, if I want, on the rows, I could also put the customer ID. Let's bring that down here. We'll put customer on top of that product ID. So we have the customer IDs and then the product ID. And you can see we took the database, the warehouse, we extracted data from it, and then we put it into a pivot table that allows us to look at it in not as good as we would get with an analytical cube, but as close as approximation as we want, so we can really call up. Well, I'll give you an example. On June the 1st, I'm probably on June the 11th, given each of these channels, the customer and the product, what was the grand total. Now I can come over here, and I've got the row labels, and I've got the customer ID, and I'm going to leave that, but I'm going to look at the column labels, and I've got the pardon me, here's the column labels. Okay, and I could say based on that ID, which customer are we most interested in, or any two customers, or all four. Once we extract some information from this, some insights, we've just now engaged in what we call business intelligence. We may see a pattern here in the dates. We may see a pattern we may see a pattern in the dates, or we may see an opportunity. And that's really, this file's Access Workshop number 2. For all intents and purposes, for Access Workshop number 1, you'll be uploading the Access at Northwind Traders. So you'll want to save yours. I'm not going to because I won't be uploading, but you will. So let's go back over here to the modules. And so we've gone through just an introduction to the course, what we're doing, the textbooks that we're going to be using. And we've started off with this idea of a data warehouse and how that's put together. And of course, I'll have some exams for you. That's the POTS exam is due the 3rd. And again, Northwind Traders, just that's the first Access Workshop. We exported it, took a look at it. So when it says upload Access number 1, that's what you'll upload. Access Workshop number 2, we've taken a look at that fact sales Excel file. We exported it. Now, just to make sure that you're on top of that, I'm going to show you an export. And here's the data warehouse. Well, I'll go back down here to Northwind Traders. I'm going to open it back up. Okay. And we'll close off that dashboard. And we're going to pop over here for just a second. And we've got the inventory transactions table. It's pretty complex. It tells us the transaction ID, the type of transaction, when it was created, and we got another, if there was any modifications, the product ID, quantity, and the purchase order ID. And then any comments. So if I'm interested in doing some more work analyzing this, okay, this table. Now, and the transaction, I'm going to close this. And you'll notice we had, well, let me pop this open just again one more time. This is a listing of the transactions. And notice there's some empty data here. In the real world, you would not have this. If you did, you'd have chaos. And I've worked with some clients that will not, they'll leave fields open in their tables. They won't fill them up, and we'll talk about that some more. And let's close this off for a minute and see if there's a link between the transaction ID and purchase order ID. And we can take a shot at that. In fact, we'll just run it. We'll generate a query. Notice I'm here in query design, and I'm going to get inventory transactions. All right. And I'm going to get got the inventory transactions. And I'm going to see how many customers. I'm going to add that. Oh, close. Now we've got customers. Want us to get this or this table. Now I have a transaction ID. Let's see if I have. This is just customers. Let's see if we can link these two on the basis of, we have customer order ID, but we don't have customer or customers. So I'll remove that table. So we may have to come back and do some work in combining some more tables. Close this off for a second. Okay. We have the inventory transactions, and it's simple. I'm going to click export, and I'll just export it to Excel. And there again, I can work on those transactions and analyze them using a pivot table or developing charts or doing some type of statistical analysis. But I put them into a tool that allows me to do the number crunching after I've extracted the data. So that's access workshop number 2. So for access workshop number 1, you'll be uploading that database. And for access workshop 2, you'll do some work with the fact sales table. I'd like to see you do that. And that's the first 2 workshops, as well as an introduction to the course. We've plowed through a little bit here. And as I mentioned before, we'll have our first actual class physical meeting on the 3rd. That's the Tuesday after Labor Day. Sorry about this. Had a bereavement situation, and I'm not going to be back till late Tuesday night, the 27th. There's, of course, obviously no way that I could have planned what happened, or could I do anything except plan and be there and then come home accordingly. Okay. That'll pretty much wrap it up. And this will be in lieu of a class intro plus what we would have done on the 27th. Now, before I do anything else, again, I want to remind you, here are all these course resources. All right. And I want you to take a look at those. Okay. and we'll just go through. Now, I want to show you as you navigate through this, you'll see the assignments as they flow through. You'll see that we have exams or quizzes up here. And then we move over here to the assignments. And it flows through. One, Access Workshop 2, Access Workshop 3. There's Access Workshop 4. It'll be due. And away we go. Now, just to make sure that you're completely clear on everything, I'm going to hunt for the syllabus here for a minute. I guess each place it occurs, the word. There's the syllabus. I'm going to open up again for you so you can see. Especially in terms of how we have the assignments that we'll be doing. So we've done the first 2 Access workshops. We just did a look through of Northwind Traders, so you'd upload it. Then we did the fact sales export. We had taken an Excel file, which is actually the fact sales table out of Northwind Traders. We had exported to Excel. And we talked about the idea of the wisdom triangle. We talked about the cube, pardon me, not the cube, but we talked about the analytic cube and how that works, and this notion of a warehouse where I store this data, I extract it, and then I'm ready to send it to a place where I can analyze it. Okay? And we'll talk some also about exporting data. And then as we move through the course, we'll do some work with Microsoft. We'll do some work with SQL. And you'll find it's pretty easy. And when you go out and apply for a job, you'll be able to say with some truth, yes, I wrote some code. I did work with some SQL. Yeah, I'm fairly familiar with SAP, with Oracle, with SAS, because you'll get some experience with them. I understand about business intelligence and dashboards. And so you'll be talking the language of those employers. And the best thing is that you'll be able to say, I'm pretty comfortable working with databases. So you'll be way ahead of the curve. Okay, folks, well, that'll do it for this session. Really, remember, because of the scheduling, we didn't have class 0 weeks, so the classes start the 22nd. And then we couldn't have class on the 27th because of the bereavement issue that I had to deal with. So this is in lieu of class intro and the 27th of August. And we will physically meet on the 3rd of September, the Tuesday after Labor Day. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop.